WION Broadband Edition, presented by Vedantu. India. Get free live online courses.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the WION Sports Broadband Edition with me, Digvijay Singh Deo. My guest today is a former Indian football captain and one of the greatest sportspersons this country has seen, Bhaichung Bhutia. Bhaichung, welcome to WION. And we've already in a month now since this lockdown was imposed, and I gather that you yourself are stranded because of this lockdown. How's it been?
It's been quite good. In fact, obviously, I'm stuck here in Siliguri, but in fact, I did choose to stay here in Siliguri rather than going back to Sikkim because my kids and family is back in Calcutta. So when I was just returning from Kolkata, going to Sikkim and again back, that's where I got stuck. But yeah, it's been good. Siliguri is a nice, beautiful town, and for us, for people of Sikkim and the hills around Darjeeling, Kalimpong, Siliguri is the main town for us, and it's a beautiful place. It's nice. So got a lot of friends around here as well. So yeah.
Yeah, but Bhaichung, you've always been an outdoor person. How has this experience been like staying indoors?
I think it's been quite good. In fact, I've been traveling quite a lot, rushing around, doing a lot of things. But I think this lockdown has really, made me cool down, stay indoor, have your time for myself, which has been good. I've not been also working out a bit lately because of the traveling and work. So now, since you're indoor doing nothing, so I do take time out to work out as well. So it's been good. Apart from that, yes, since I'm here, alone stuck here. So what we decided to do with my football club, United Sikkim Football Club, back in Gangtok, we've given out, number to people through Facebook saying anybody outside Sikkim or stuck in different parts of the city, town, if there's any kind of help you require, we would be very happy to help you with, my network and my friends around different parts of the states and cities. So we've been doing a bit of social work as well in that way.
Yes, and it's been exemplary in a sense how Sikkim has sort of come together to battle this entire crisis. It's been one of the most exemplary states when it comes to containing the virus.
Yes, it has. I think, in fact, few things that has really gone in favor of us is obviously the geographical location. And the connectivity is not too great. Our airport has not been functioning. Even the government has taken, right decision at right time. In fact, our CM few days ago did say that, entire success is because of people of Sikkim. And if you, in fact, look back at and see the data, Sikkim is one of the most clean state in country today. And people of Sikkim really follow law and order very, religiously. So that's been a great thing because, after the lockdown, the government called, I think people have really cooperated with the government. Anyway, people of Sikkim do try and stay very clean and healthy. So that's been a factor. And apart from that, I think we've been a bit lucky as well because the coronavirus did come in when we have the lowest tourism season at this time, because January, February, March is the lowest when we have, not many tourists coming in. In fact, the last year's data showed that we had 20 lakh tourists come to Sikkim. So if it had just been 2-3 months away, then it could have been a nightmare because, May, June, July, April, May, June is the peak season for tourists. And during that period, we anyway have around 10 to 15 lakh of tourists coming in. So if that had happened during this period, then I think we would have been in a big nightmare situation.
No, but Bhaichung, it also, while it's great now, it could also end up being problematic in the long run because, as you said, those are the main months for tourism, but we're not going to see much of tourism now, obviously, in the next few months. So the economy is going to take a big hit.
It is because today I think the biggest income for people of Sikkim is tourism, apart from government jobs. And that is going to be a sector which is going to be completely hit badly. And when you speak of tourism as well, the biggest hit is going to be are the taxi drivers, because obviously the hotel owners are anyway they can manage to run, but a lot of taxi drivers who are from lower income group, they've taken cars on loan, they depend on tourists this 3 months, and then again September, October, November is where they really try and make their living out of these 3-4 months. So I think they're going to be the hardest hit people, and I hope government is going to have some kind of package coming to them. Obviously, there are other sectors who are also affected badly, but I think everything can be looked at stage by stage, and tourism definitely is going to get hit, because even things open up and lockdown cools up. As you said, the tourist is not going to be coming to either any places. I don't think people would be traveling for the next 1 year till you have complete vaccine come up and people are very safe mentally to travel. So I think that till that time happens, I think tourism sector, hospitality sector is going to get hit badly.
Okay, self-sustenance obviously helping out, but we always say this, sitting in Delhi, that there is always the tyranny of distance. The further you go away from Delhi, the news starts coming in that much lesser. So how's it been this last 1 month in the Northeast? What have you heard? Because I have friends in Assam telling me that at certain places there has been dire situations, especially with the daily wage workers in the tea gardens and all. They are having problems, cases coming in of even people who have not been able to access ration because they've mortgaged their ration cards. All this news coming in. So how's it overall been from the Northeast, the news?
I think Assam definitely is one of the biggest state, in fact, the biggest state in Northeast, and Guwahati and the surrounding area is definitely big industrial area with even tea gardens and a lot of manufacturing happening. So I'm sure it's been quite challenging there, because they have a lot of migrant workers compared to any of the northeastern states. So, I think, but so far we've not been hearing anything, anything drastic, because I think the government of Assam has done quite a good job. In fact, a lot of the governments in the Northeast have really taken great step, great initiative, and been able to control it. So not many cases. Now, I think if you look at the Northeastern state, apart from Sikkim, Arunachal is zero coronavirus. They just had 1 or 2 that got cleared. Manipur has come down to 0. Mizoram is, I think, almost come down to 0. Meghalaya, lately, I think 1 or 2 more cases happening. But overall, I think Northeast, with the virus, I think the government has taken a lot of good initiative. But I think with even with the migrant workers and the tea garden industry, I think government of Assam is taking a lot of measures to really see that they are, not having any issues or problem.
Now, you mentioned all this almost negligible amount of COVID cases out there in the Northeast. But, you've been one of India's most iconic sports persons. You've had Sunil currently, who is the captain of the Indian football team. Mary Kom has been one of India's standout performers in world sport. What she has achieved is perhaps very difficult for anyone to even come close. Yet, how disappointed are you when you read or you see visuals of people from the Northeast being attacked, sort of racial profiling and all happening? How hurt does that make you?
No, I think it's very upsetting to read such stories and such incidents, because I think, yes, one of the reason is awareness and to the people around in the mainstream India. So that definitely is something which I think the entire country will have to fight to bring awareness of all the streets in different parts of the country. But at the same time, I think there should be some action taken against people who are racially discriminating anywhere, any parts of the country, and especially northeastern in the rest of the states in India. So I think some action has to be taken, and this is something. If India has to grow tomorrow and India has to become a stronger nation, I think unity is the most important factor here. And more we are united, the stronger the country can become. So I think this kind of racial discrimination is just going to put a lot of negative impact to people of different states, and that is not a great thing for if India has to be united and grow as one of the leading nations in the world. So I think there should be some action strictly taken against people who are racially discriminating.
Strong words, Bhaichung, and it's not just the people of the Northeast. What was equally more bizarre is in the last 2 or 3 weeks, seeing visuals of doctors, nurses, healthcare workers being attacked as well. It's forced the government to actually come out with strong laws to put people like this behind bars. What does it tell you about the mentality of people who are actually attacking people who are actually on the front lines trying to battle this virus? They're putting their lives at risk.
No, it is very, very unfortunate. In fact, I tweeted beginning of this month, and I said to Honorable Prime Minister take serious action against people who are attacking health people, because I think they're the first people to go there and fight for us. And we've seen that happen in Italy, I think, when the doctors, not through attack, but when the doctors were not treated properly, the medical equipments were not good. They lost a lot of lives. Doctors and nurses lost a lot of lives in Italy, and that's where they could not really treat people. And that they toll went quite drastically high, because their healthcare people who were working for them were not being able to take care of themselves. So it's important that in a country like India, if we don't protect our healthcare people, especially doctors and nurses, who's going to treat? That's going to be very, very scary, because the cases might rise, and then we don't have people treating people with coronavirus positive. That is going to be a very, very dangerous situation. So I think the government of India has taken the right step. There is a law that's been passed yesterday. And I think people who are into attacking doctors should definitely be punished.
Having you here, I have to talk a bit about sport, Bhaichung. Yes. Unprecedented to see the global sporting calendar wiped out. We've never been able to think of a life without sport, and here we are. Lots of things we've never expected. We are seeing it now. Sport wiped out. Animals roaming around freely. Air quality index, especially here in Delhi, in the capital region, completely perfect. Rivers completely clean. Sort of a lesson for us?
I guess so. I think it needed a break, and I'm sure a lot of things are happening for good, and I'm sure a lot of things are not happening for good as well. The air quality is obviously improved, and the rivers are getting cleaner, which is very important now. To sustain it after lockdown is one big challenge. But yes, I think sporting events across the world is being postponed or cancelled, which is quite unfortunate. But I'm sure it will resume after the lockdown period with the right kind of initiative taken to protect people around. So I think it's important that sports should obviously come back sooner or later. And at the same time, I think people should be now aware, especially with the coronavirus that's happened. People should be aware that sports is very, very important in their life. People are only now talking about health and healthcare. I think your personal health is very, very important. And I'm sure people will now start thinking of getting some time out of the busy schedule to work out and keep themselves fit and healthy. And if they can do that, I think, the world and life for them and the world is going to be a much better place.
Last week, Bhaichung, I spoke to Pulela Gopichand, who is now a very successful coach. Gopi had a suggestion. He said, no, because a lot of these athletes are staying away from training at the moment, the ministry should actually get all of them together into a quarantine camp. We have these big size centers, be it NIS Patiala, be it Bangalore, the Sai campus there, which can accommodate a lot of sports. Ensure that they are all inside and they continue their training so that they are in top shape. Even the Indian Olympic Association has now requested the ministry for that yesterday as well. So what do you make of this? Is it fair on these athletes, and will it be safer to take them out wherever they are, because traveling, everything is a problem, put them into quarantine camps, let the training go on? Is that the way forward?
No, I think it can start with individual sports, and you don't need to, fly to different cities for that. I think I'm sure the Sports Authority of India and the Sports Ministry has got that facilities in a lot of the big cities. And, if somebody in Bangalore, some athlete who's playing for international is around that place, then they can go to a center where, the Sports Ministry can identify And same way with Delhi and Bombay, those places. So I think it's a great recommendation and suggestion from Gopi. It can start with individual sports and hopefully later on go into team sports. But I think it is fair that if they're put into one area, one place in that city, which is where they are, then it can start in that step. Then later on, I think slowly you can, then have, once the flight resumes, then you can have some, other athletes going into better facilities in different cities. But right now they can start with those cities, identify the facilities there and start putting all the sports person who are going to represent India from that city into that quarantine area, and it can start. So I would suggest with individual sports, they can start doing that.
Okay. No, you've been one of India's most prominent sporting talents, prodigious talent, went up to the highest level possible. How difficult is it, Bhaichung, for those athletes who've not had any sort of training? Somebody like an Anju Mudgil or Apurvi Chandela may have a shooting range at home, one target they can keep training, but for athletes and all, for other players, there is been a bit of a problem. How much time does it take to regain your peak, especially after a situation like this, where we still don't know that once May 3rd, it will be about a month and a half, so people have lost a lot of their, kind of fitness and all that stuff. How much time does it really take to reach back into a peak of elite international performance?
It does take time, because if you're especially doing any sports that's got to do with fitness, like badminton, I think if you don't train for a week or 10 days or even a month, I think your fitness level comes down drastically. And also you need, especially like sports like tennis, badminton, you need to keep competing with somebody there to play around. So the reflexes to fitness goes down quite drastically. Obviously, shooting and all, I'm not too sure. I'm not expert on that sport, but that is something where I think you might not face so much difficulty as much as other sports which has got fitness involved. So for an athlete,
wrestling or boxing, you need somebody against
wrestling,
you. Wrestling and boxing,
same again. You need to compete, and at the same time, you need to also be in that environment where it's just not about physical, but also mentally you are in those environment where you're competing and you're getting used to that environment. So that makes a lot of difference. So yes, I think if you're not competing for quite some time, it's very, very challenging for the athletes to again start working and getting back to that high top level fitness. So it's important that they start working out and start playing and training and competing.
Even your sport, football, how much of an impact has this COVID-19 pandemic had on Indian football? Because the ISL got over behind closed doors. The I-League, AIFF has announced it's over. But there is going to be a problem in the future, because obviously sponsorship is going to dry down. The big ISL clubs probably can still manage because their owners have deep pockets. But if the smaller clubs, clubs like yours, clubs in the Northeast, which is a hub of Indian football, these clubs could face a lot of problems. What do you think are going to be the issues Indian football is going to face?
No, if it doesn't resume when it's supposed to, then I think it's definitely going to be a problem. But good thing with Indian football is the coronavirus, COVID-19 happened during just when the season was getting over. ISL has just been finished. I-League was on the verge of finished, where Mohun Bagan had already won the I-League. So at least it happened during the off-season time. Now, there will anyway break for 3-4 months. But after 3-4 months, I'm sure, I think there would be some kind of vaccination or some kind of treatment come out, and football also starts by August, September. It does start. So I strongly feel that it needs to start if the government allows, with the right kind of precautions taken. And if you have to play in empty stadiums as well, I think you should play it, because people would love to watch it on television. There's a market on digital platform. There's a market on the television. So the revenues can still be generated, but I think it needs to start and resume the sporting events, especially football in India, and it's got an opportunity. So if the government allows, I think the Football Federation should think by September, October, the league should again start.
Okay, that's for India. What do you think about global leagues which are suspended at the moment? There's so much money riding on these leagues, be it England, Germany, Spain, all these countries. UEFA has postponed Euro to ensure that these leagues are happen. There is talk that it will resume behind closed doors, but there's still no clarity. Do you think that at the moment there's no point cutting your losses, no point declaring seasons null and void, and that playing behind closed doors is the way to go, despite the fact that football is a sport which thrives on atmosphere?
I think I've been reading about, some of the countries in Europe are going to start their football league soon with closed door and with no spectators on. I think that's completely fine if they can take the right precautions, and which they will. And it's got a huge market today. If you're looking at Premier League, La Liga to German Bundesliga and Italian league, I think they've got huge market outside their own country. So I think, and this is the right time for them to start, resuming if they can, if not without the spectators as well. Obviously, you need, for the players, it's very disappointing to play in empty stadiums, which is no players would want to do it. But I think the game should go on. And there's a huge revenue that can be made because, the world right now is wanting to see some live action. And if football can resume, which is obviously the most popular sport in the world, so it can also target that market in much bigger way.
But how much time do you think it will take right now, Bhaichung? Say, in certain countries, we're still looking at first week of May, when this lockdown will be lifted. How much time will it take for players to come up to speed back to those levels? Because you can train at home as much as you like. We've been seeing videos of the Liverpool team having yoga sessions on Zoom, all of that. But, training as a team together, that will take time to build up your levels. So how much time usually as a pro peak, footballer does it take to reach peak levels of fitness?
I don't think, it'll be much of a problem, because obviously in Europe the concept is the teams are there for quite long time. You don't have a new team altogether in 1 year, so you have your team which is built over the years. So I think that's not going to, only the fitness level, I think it takes a little bit time, but maximum 10 to 14 days I think the players would get back to their top fitness in Europe, because these guys have been working out on their own, and I'm sure these guys are professional enough to make sure that they're fit. So I don't see it. Once I think they get a green signal, I think in 2 weeks' time they get fit and it can start. So a lot of the countries, especially the leagues which is there, they know that opportunity right now is huge for them to come and start playing live, even without the spectators. And I won't be surprised that if German league could start in next 2 to 3 weeks.
Final question to you, Bhaichung. I've been asking this to a lot of sports persons over the course of this series. Has this lockdown period and this entire global catastrophe, this crisis which has affected all of us, has it made us appreciate the value of sport and sports persons even more? We sort of took it for granted, didn't we? We knew that, sport is going to come on a weekend, or, through the weekdays, people would stay up at night, or, catch a highlight in the morning. All that is gone now. All we're seeing is reruns on TV. Will we learn to appreciate our sporting icons much more, especially in this country?
I hope so, because I think till now people were guaranteed coming back, watching, some sports live or a retelecast or highlights. But now I think people are struggling because we're so used to watching some sports sitting in your sofa, not getting to do that. And I'm sure people do miss quite a lot. So I think there would be appreciation for sure for sports person. But at the same time, I think it's also now people of India, especially India, because we're not a sporting nation, and to now really focus on their self-health, which is very, very important. Everybody is talking about investing in healthcare, but I would suggest that more than that, invest in sports infrastructure, not in a bigger way, at least just build grounds, build some open spaces for kids and people to go work out. And if you can invest that, I think obviously healthcare would also be taken care in that way. So I think now it's time for the government of India and government in different states to now make sure that you invest in health, just not in healthcare, but in health. And when you're saying health, that means you just make sure that people have spaces to play around, kids have grounds to go and play and kick around and run around. And if that can be done, I think our healthcare also should be looked after. So I'm sure people would now focus more on being fit, healthy, and eating healthy.
Okay. Yes, Fit India. That's the buzzword, isn't it, at the moment? Bhaichung, but I can tell you one thing, looking at you, you are extremely fit. Perhaps once this interview is over, I'm going to call you up and take tips on how I should get back into shape. But thank you so much, Bhaichung. It's been a while since we last spoke.
Anyway, I'm starting a fitness tourism in Sikkim, so you can come and work out.
Okay. After spending so much time at home, I'm not sure I'm going to get leave at the moment. But e-module, this is also this period has taught us how to use technology. If you could have an e-class for people like us, we'll definitely love to join. But, when you were playing, there used to be lots of meetings, lots of interactions. Haven't spoken to you for a while, Bhaichung. Lovely to see you. Lovely to hear from you.
Thank you.
Hopefully what you've been saying, people take notice. And it's great to hear your perspective once again. Thank you so much.
WION Broadband Edition, presented by Vedantu. India. Get free live online courses.